Hi, good afternoon, everyone. One more minute before it goes to afternoon. I know it's still AM, but good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Immigration 101 webinar. Let's wait for the others to join and we will get started in a few minutes. All right, again, everyone, good afternoon. Thanks for joining our webinar. We will wait for the others to join. It's 12:01. We'll give them a few more minutes to join.
We'll get started here. So this presentation is going to be on Immigration 101. We're just going to go through some basics and try to understand what the best visa type is for you, possibly. We'll get started just with a few things. Just wanted to make everybody aware of. Please be mindful of the mute button, turn on your cameras, and if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We don't want to miss anything or forget anything, so feel free to throw it in when you remember it, and then we can just touch on it at the end. Um, Even though this is a virtual webinar, I just want this to feel as approachable as possible and make it actually something useful for you. So if we're able to see you, hear you, have all of your questions and concerns noted, that definitely helps. So feel free, reach out and just make sure everything you want to know or have covered is covered. Right. So today we have several members of our team present. Keegan's our Zoom host. We'll also have Jack and Octavio here. They will be our legal assistants. They will be very useful if you want to schedule a consult or some other session for us to go over things in greater detail with you. So feel free, ask any questions. There are no stupid questions, so ask away. And then we also have our senior attorney and our managing attorney, Jason Elliott, here. He'll be available to answer any other questions in different areas of law that we do cover, including asset protection. So let's get started here. My name is Savendra Ganesh Miraj. I'm an attorney at Bay Legal. I deal with immigration as well as some other areas. We're a virtual law firm in California. We practice throughout the state, and we cover areas ranging from estate planning and real estate to business law and now structured petition-based immigration. Our mission here at Bay Legal is to provide a convenient, modern, and thoughtful approach to representation. And so I really appreciate you joining us here today. I know it takes time out of your day to be here, and you do have a lot going on. So I appreciate you spending at least maybe your lunch hour or whatever time this is with me here today. So we're going to talk about immigration law, as you probably know, but I don't want it to feel like a way that's a law school lecture because that's not what anybody signed up for. Instead, I want it to feel a little more practical. I want it to be something that you walk away with some level of clarity. And I also want it to be something where you feel like you're actually learning something. And so immigration, it's one of those things that it can feel complicated and it can feel tricky and it can feel overwhelming. But there's a way to get beyond that. And that's by understanding the structure behind immigration. And so once you understand it, at least I think in my experience, it becomes much more approachable that way. So let's move forward. Before we jump into the visa categories and different processes that we'll talk about, I just wanted to share something personal. So immigration law, it's not just something that I practice. It's actually something that has shaped my life long before I even became an attorney. My ancestors were originally from India. From there, my family moved to the West Indies, specifically Trinidad and Guyana. And then later on, my family settled in Canada, where I was born and I'm from. And then now I'm here in the US. So immigration, it's not just a part of my practice as an attorney or my professional life. It's actually part of my family story across many generations. And I think if you really think about it, that's probably true for most of us that are here today. At some point in the past, someone in our family moved, and sometimes it was by choice, sometimes it was because they had to, but usually it was because they were in search of opportunity or some kind of growth. So when I sit across from a client, I don't just see the paperwork that we have in front of us. I like to see someone building the next chapter in their family story, like many of you are probably trying to do today. My own immigration journey, it started quite a few years ago now at this point. I came to the US from Canada as an international student to attend Brigham Young University for my undergrad studies. Later on, I moved to California to attend law school in San Francisco. Because of that, I spent a number of years on a student visa. And if you're someone that's ever been on a student visa, you know it's not just, pack up everything in your backpack, go to school, and you'll be fine. Instead, you're forced to constantly be aware of your status. You always have to think, is my I-20 signed? Is my visa stamp still valid? If I travel back home, will I be allowed back into the US? I remember several times traveling back and forth between Canada and the US. And, that's not even a really tough border situation, I would say. But every time, no matter what, I always double checked every document before I left. And I definitely didn't just pack my clothes, I packed paperwork as well. So I think that level of awareness that your life here is tied to documents and documentation, it tends to stay with you even after you've completed the process. Even now, I'm able to bond with some fellow international students, and we joke about how we still carry our passports with us everywhere. And so, fast forward to kind of a few years later, after I was still a student actually, but this is around time of 2020 pandemic time. I got married just 2 weeks before the pandemic. And that started a completely different chapter of my life, not only because of the pandemic and just life and married life in general, but it started a way different chapter in my immigration story. I went through the adjustment of status phase. I filed the I-130, I-485, and I applied for advanced parole so I could travel while my green card was pending. Because of the pandemic, I didn't really get to travel, of course, but I had plans before we knew any of this was happening. And I definitely, though, didn't book flights until that document was approved because I knew one mistake could undo everything that I'd worked hard to achieve at this point. Admittedly, I even checked my case status on USCIS more than I like to admit, but I bet a lot of you that have been in this process probably can sympathize with me on that point. Eventually, later on, I became a green card holder. I didn't really take that long. I believe it was like 11 months or something like that. But when I did become a green card holder, with that, it came more waiting. And then, as you probably guessed, or as you probably know, it's more paperwork as well. Finally, in 2025, as you can see, there is a picture from my swearing in ceremony. I became a US citizen. So, when I talk about immigration law today, I'm not just going to explain forms. I actually understand the waiting process myself, the uncertainty. I understand how it feels to build your life somewhere new where you actually don't know how long the process will take or really if you'll still be here. And I think that perspective kind of matters when it comes to something so personal. So, what we're going to be covering today, it's going to kind of be a lot, but we'll go through a little bit quickly. So, feel free to ask any questions or throw any questions in the chat as you think of them. We're going to walk through some major pathways. One is going to be family based immigration, which is pretty common. Then we're also going to touch briefly on student visas, employment based visas, employment based green cards, and then finally some investment visas. So if you have a family or a student, an employee, or an investor, then you're in the right place today. For each pathway, I'll explain what it actually means in real life, not just legally, and who it tends to make sense for because immigration isn't just like one thing. No, nobody falls into the same bucket. It's a system of pathways. Everybody's trying to go a different place, but the end goal is usually the same. And once you identify the pathway that fits your goal best and how to achieve that goal, things start to feel a little less intimidating. So let's start here with family based immigration. Marriage based green cards and the family based pathway to US citizenship through marriage, that's one of the most common things. One of the biggest misconceptions, though, that I hear is that once we get married, my spouse automatically gets a green card. That's not exactly how it works. So, marriage will give you the eligibility to apply for a green card, but it doesn't grant status by itself. The process still involves filing of an I-130. It's a petition that pretty much proves a relationship. If the spouse is inside the US and is eligible, like in my situation, you can file an I-485 to adjust status. There's still a petition with that process, still biometrics and background checks, and there's still documentation, and usually there's still an interview. But if you've been married less than 2 years at approval, you'll still get a conditional green card, and then 2 years after that, you can file again to remove those conditions. And there's kind of a mindset shift that I try to encourage for people. You're not trying to prove that you just had a wedding. You see my wedding photo in the corner here, but that's not what we're trying to prove. We're trying to prove that we built a life together. And so that can include things like joint bank accounts, shared lease or mortgage, any kind of insurance policies, even a phone contract together. Sometimes that's kind of a stretch, but it's something. And photos together and trips together you took over time. So I actually have a funny story about my own process. At the time of my interview, my wife and I lived down in Pismo Beach on the Central Coast, kind of in the middle of nothing. There's a lot of space in either direction, but there's no government offices there to do with immigration, unfortunately. So we had to travel over 3 hours to the nearest office that was in LA. And so, although we knew our relationship was not a sham, we'd been married for a few years at that point and been together prior to that even. Um, we're both pretty much overthinkers and spent the week leading up to that interview printing out, it was well over 1,000 pages of social media posts, pictures, letters, and other memories we shared together throughout the years. I think we even went so far as to put them in order based on the year and everything. It was probably way too much, way over prepared. When we arrived in LA for the interview, we had a huge banker's box with us, like one of those paper boxes with just full. It had a binder in it and extra documents and letters and all these different things. And in that was a binder that organized everything, like I mentioned, chronologically from the beginning of the relationship to that point of the interview. When we sat down, the agent across from us, they can tell that you're nervous, and they probably expect people to be nervous. It's probably more weird if you're not nervous. And so they were looking at us, and I think just to mess with us, they was pretty much like, I believe you guys, now just take out 10 pictures and I'll keep them for my report. We were relieved, but at the same time, we're like, yeah, we just printed a bunch of stuff and took a week to prepare, but at least they accepted it, and we went forward from there. That was a really vital point in our immigration process. The USCIS, that's the government agency that deals with immigration, they look at relationships with a magnifying glass each day. And so they know what the difference is between a real or a fake relationship. Before you even step into the interview, they probably have a good idea of what's going on. What they're looking for is consistency. They want to see that your story makes sense. And the couples that feel most confident and comfortable during the interview are usually the ones that can make it make sense. They're the ones that are organized from the beginning. Maybe not so over prepared, but at least what I think is that preparation reduces anxiety, despite it being a stressful situation nonetheless. Now, this is something very important I wanted to pause on here because it's something that a lot of people they don't know about until it's far too late. If you're somebody that's adjusting your status while you're in the US, like I was at that point, and you leave the US without advanced parole documents in hand, your case can be considered abandoned. So the word, it sounds dramatic, but it actually is very accurate. While my case was pending, I didn't leave the country until that travel document was approved. And to be honest, I really didn't leave the country at all because it was the pandemic. And even after you receive your green card, travel still has structure to it. I wouldn't say so much restrictions, but it has structure. And so, what does that really mean? Trips over 6 months, they can raise questions. Trips over 1 year require a reentry permit, and extended travel can always impact your citizenship eligibility. There's different things you have to keep in mind when you're not a citizen yet. And so at the green card stage, this doesn't really change. It just evolves what the process is for you. But I would say definitely, if you're in a specific stage, sit down with somebody and try to take a look and see what your restrictions are or what your game plan could be so that you don't encounter any of these issues. The next one here is the 90-day fiance visa. That's what I like to call it. It's also called the K1. But it's a fiance visa that allows a US citizen to bring their fiance into the United States to marry within 90 days. This is the type of visa that the show 90 Day Fiance is, of course, based off of. But the 90 day is actually a real requirement. It's just not a nice name. It actually is literally 90 days. And so once the fiance enters on the K1, the couple must marry within that 90-day period. And after that, the foreign spouse can apply for adjustment of status. So it's kind of a two-step process. It's the application for that K1. Once they come here, they must get married within that time period. And then there's a path moving forward. But this is ideal for people who want to be together while they're in the US and hold their wedding here rather than abroad. Now, I just want to touch very briefly on student visas for international students studying in the US. The F1, it allows for full-time academic study. Maintaining the F1 visa or student visa is active, not passive. You have to remain enrolled full-time. Your work authorization abilities are very limited. Usually it's about 20 hours a week in most visa cases. And then unauthorized employment can create very serious issues later on down the road. Travel requires a valid visa stamp under the I-20, and it must be signed and show continued enrollment at that university. If you have one unauthorized job, you have one lapse in your enrollment at school, or one documentation issue at the border, any of those things can create long-term consequences. And that's kind of how I shape my practice today is to try to avoid these things just by being a little hyper vigilant about the paperwork. Now we're going to shift gears and move on to employment-based visas. These are some temporary work visas that allow professionals to work in the US. Most common ones we see, especially here in California and the Bay Area, are the H-1B, the TN, O-1, and sometimes the L-1. each one has a different purpose and structure. So we're going to start here with the H-1B because in California, and especially, like I said, in the Bay Area, this one comes up constantly. It's for specialty occupations requiring at least a bachelor's degree in a specific field. So you think about fields like engineering, software developers, data scientists, healthcare professionals. It's something that is employer sponsored, it's lottery based, and it is temporary. It's generally up to about 6 years. The reality is that, of course, there are way more applicants than available visas. So I mentioned the lottery system before. That's what the government runs in order to issue it kind of more fairly. And so the employers they'll submit registrations. If selected, then they can file the full petition for their employee. So when someone says they're applying for an H-1B, what they really mean is that their employer is entering them into a lottery and it gives them the chance to apply for that H-1B after the lottery is issued. And so in the Bay Area, this is kind of a path that a lot of people follow. They start off in F1, which is a student phase. Then they go on to something called OPT. Kind of a work study ability after your schooling is done or in between school for internships to get experience, make connections, that sort of thing. Then they transition hopefully to the H-1B. And following that, they hopefully will get to the employment-based green card stage. So this is kind of a pipeline, and the lottery, it's competitive and unpredictable, so strategy and timing definitely matter. For Canadian and Mexican citizens, there's also something called the TN visa. It's under the US Mexico Canada Agreement. And it's something that some of my own family members and friends have made use of or have explored because if they've wanted to work in the US. The TN will allow certain individuals and professionals, same thing, engineers, accountants, scientists, to work in the US. The cool thing is, unlike an H-1B, this is not subject to the lottery system or that lottery cap. So it makes it very attractive for Canadians or Mexicans that are wanting to work in tech in the US. However, it's very employer specific, and this one really doesn't have an automatic transition or pathway to permanent residency. So you kind of have to look back and plan this out long term. The O1 visa is for individuals with extraordinary ability. Extraordinary does not necessarily mean you're a celebrity. It means that you can document that you're amongst the top percentage in your field. You have to show things like awards, publications, press coverage, major contributions, or high compensation. In California, this category has expanded a lot, especially recently, beyond just researchers and company executives. Even social media influencers can qualify under the O1B if they demonstrate sustained acclaim. That's why sometimes it's dubbed as the TikTok influencer visa. And so you have to look at things, especially in that type of scenario, brand partnerships, media recognition, high engagement metrics, significant revenue tied to the platform. Pretty much when somebody calls this the influencer visa, there's some truth to it, but just like anything in the immigration world, it's all going to depend upon your documentation. That's definitely everything. So it's not about popularity in this case, although that does help. It's actually about proving that you actually do have that type of coverage and that type of acclaim. Now we're going to zoom out a little bit from temporary work visas and talk about permanent residency through employment. There are essentially a few types as the primary categories: EB1, EB2, and EB3. They're all long term immigration pathways and they require a lot of planning and patience. So we'll go through each just in a little greater detail. So the EB1 is often for extraordinary ability individuals or multinational executives, and in some cases allows self petitioning. The EB2, that's for advanced degree professionals. So this usually requires something called perm labor certification. Um, though there's something called national interest waivers. They're very complex waivers to try to kind of get around this requirement. They're available in some fields. Has to be high impact fields like AI and biotechnology, things like that. Finally, there's EB3. That's for skilled workers and professionals, but it also typically requires this PERM certification. So let me just kind of explain what that is. It's something called PERM labor certification. It means that the employer has to test the US labor market and prove that no qualified US workers available. That process, as you can imagine, just like in everything, takes time. And so that process can take over a year before you even have the chance to file an immigration petition. One important factor here is the per country caps, which significantly extend wait times. So for individuals from countries with high demand, such as India and China, visa backlogs can significantly extend wait times. This is definitely not a short process at all. It requires a lot of strategy and it requires a lot of patience. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to briefly touch on another important visa category. This one's going to be investment visas. Not everybody comes to the US through family or seeking employment. In California, another major pathway is going to be entrepreneurship. There's something called the E2 visa, and that one it allows somebody from a treaty country, I have some listed on the side here, um, to invest substantial capital into the US labor market and actively manage it. So it's not a passive investment, but it's for serious entrepreneurs and startup founders who actually want to drive, use their own drive and increase the labor market and make a difference in the US. The EB5 provides permanent residency through investment. This is a little bit different than the E2 visa. This is a lot of funds that are required up front, typically $800,000 or more, and the requirement that the investment creates at least 10 full-time US jobs. Source of funds has to be documented, the jobs actually must be created, the investment must remain at risk. It's an immigration pathway that is combined kind of with financial planning. So there's kind of a lot involved here. And you definitely have to plan this out long term, and there's a lot of moving parts. So that was a lot of information. We kind of looked at everything bird's eye view. We didn't go too much in depth with anything, but here's what I hope you take away from today. Immigration, it's a structured process. It might feel overwhelming at first, but once you understand your pathway, it should become more manageable. From student visa to adjustment of status, travel permits, green cards to citizenship. I've personally walked the journey as I kind of talked about, and I feel like it's something that you shouldn't need to walk alone. So if you ever navigate your own immigration process, preparation and strategy make all the difference. It's too important to just approach casually. So if you ever feel like you benefit from some guidance, I'd be honored to walk that journey with you and assist you. So we have some time now for some questions. We can check out the chat and see if anybody threw anything in there. If you did not, feel free to ask any questions now. You can turn on your camera, raise your hands, just speak up if you want to, and we'd happy to answer all your questions. Also, like I had mentioned, there's going to be our two legal assistants available. Obviously, went through everything very quickly and very, more just an overview. But if you kind of figured out what immigration path is for you, if you need help figuring that out, feel free to join them in a breakout room. They can help you schedule a consult, and then hopefully we'll be able to speak in greater detail about your situation.
Thanks, Avendra. We have one
Mhm.
question from
Yeah.
Jacqueline. Are there any risks when a client wants to switch from H-1B visa to a marriage visa?
So there's anytime you're changing visa category, I don't want to use the word risk as much, but there's things you have to be careful of. And so I think for something like this, we'd want to kind of flesh out the details more and see what the status is now and what the details are with the upcoming marriage. So if that's something you want to talk about, um, if you since you attended the webinar today, we can offer a free consultation. So if that's something you want to talk about, I'd love to speak with you in greater detail and find out a little more.
All right, later, Jacqueline, I'll be able to provide you the link where you can book, or I can also help you further on that. We do have a second question from Carabo. I am an international student and I have been in the US for 5 years. Would I be eligible to apply for residency, and what would be the best pathway?
So I think in your situation, the timing itself of being here 5 years, that's awesome, and hopefully your program's going good. I think the timing itself or how long you've been here doesn't matter as much as what you're actually studying. So it depends what you're studying, and then what type of OPT limitations you have. If you've used some already, if you've used it all already, you have to kind of figure that out because I think usually the pathway, if it's not marriage based, the other pathway that people go is what I talked about before, that pipeline, going from student based to OPT, which is your kind of internship or work study, then on to potentially an H-1B or a work visa. That might be something that you could probably explore.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope that answered your question. We also have one for Nelly. Do all of these still apply for today's situation?
Um, I can just guess what that's referring to. If it's referring to like the political climate, then yes, probably just there's different things that we need to kind of talk about in greater detail to see how it can apply to your situation. The thing about immigration is it's very fact specific. So even though you might be applying for the same visa as somebody else, your result or your path might look a little different. So it just depends what type of facts you have or what your situation is. So if you want to offer more detail here, can feel free. If you'd prefer to discuss it more in private, you can join one of the legal assistants in the breakout room, and they can help you schedule something with me.
Awesome. I have another question, but it's more of a help that Rebecca is offering. I can reach out to you offline, Rebecca, after this. We can go to Lubna. My daughter is USA citizen, and I'm looking into family sponsorship. I am Canadian citizen and have two minor children.
That's awesome. Yeah. So if your daughter is a U.S. citizen, she can pursue a family-based petition just to kind of sponsor you as her parent. The good thing is when you're sponsoring a parent, there's not the same limitations as there would be with other visa categories. In terms of the two minor children, that adds a little level of complexity. So we'd probably have to discuss a little further what the situation is to figure that out. But yeah, just as a preliminary thing, for her to sponsor you, there's not actually a cap. It's just it might take a while. It could be a year or more. And that would be just the green card stage. Yeah, I mean, Jacqueline, I saw your question there. You can feel free and ask. And then Jack, I think
Okay,
Lubna has a question as well she wants to talk about with somebody in a breakout room.
perfect. Okay, so my question, I might have typed it weird, but just out of
Yeah.
curiosity, typically when you guys have clients who are
hmm
already on an H-1B visa and are already applying, it's a lottery system that they have to apply for every couple months, right?
hmm Yeah,
So with
yeah,
that
exactly.
process, awesome. So with that process, typically, what I meant by what risks do they run is I've also heard that typically when clients are on an asylum visa and they try to move it to a marriage visa, that typically there are times where they could possibly get sent back to their home country while they wait for decisions. That's kind of what I meant by, is it the same thing when it
I
comes
see.
to H-1Bs?
Okay. Yeah. So I think what that more is referring to sometimes is you don't want to have a lapse in your visa. And so same thing here, right? If your H-1B is active and everything, you're getting married on the side, beyond that, you're getting married and everything, what you'll need to do is then adjust your status. That's about it. You just want to make sure, kind of what you mentioned, people sometimes have to go back while the decision is being made. Usually it's become because sometimes there's a lapse in the status and you just don't want that to happen. As long as you're here legally in one way, doing something else like getting married is not going to mess that up. You just want to make sure that you're filing the correct paperwork to change that status.
Okay, so if they can keep their H-1B without changing the status if they get married, right? They could still get married, but just not
Yeah, I
do it
mean,
through
and
marriage. Okay.
if their spouse is a non-citizen or a non-resident, they could always even have them accompany them on that visa. There's kind of a partner visa to that allows spouses to join on. So
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, sure, not a problem. Thanks for talking. And
Awesome.
then I
We
think we
also
have
have another
another.
question.
Yeah,
Yes, from Elizabeth. If I have a Canada residency, does that help in any way to get any kind of job or green card in the US?
not just residency alone. I mean, if you have Canadian citizenship, potentially you could fall under that category that I did talk about in trying to qualify for visas. The benefit, through that TN visa is that you don't have the lottery system or the cap that a regular H-1B would have. That's one thing. But just a standard residency in Canada, like landed papers or PR, it doesn't help in that type of way. However, I guess the way that it does help is that if you are a resident of Canada, then you may not fall under the country caps under certain visa categories that other people might fall under. So it could help in that way too. But probably just not, it won't fast track anything for you most likely, unless you're a citizen.
Thanks, Savendra. Any other questions? We're still open for the meantime. If you want to book a consultation with Savendra, it's going to be a one-on-one consultation. We normally have a consultation fee of $250, but since you are our attendee as a thank you, we would be giving it to you for free. I sent the link in our Zoom chat where you can book the appointment. Note that the link will expire in 24 hours, so you can go ahead and grab your spot now while the link is still active. But if you also need further help to book the appointment, we can also go to a breakout room. Then we can book it for you. Octavio, can you go ahead and go to the breakout room with Nelly?
Absolutely. I will see you in room one, Nelly, so I can assist you in scheduling with Attorney Sivendra.
And while they're doing that, anybody else who wants to schedule, feel free, let us know in the chat, or feel free to just, speak up and we can have you go into another breakout room, get everything scheduled so we can talk for free, just have a nice chat about what your situation is and maybe see if give you some guidance or help you a bit. But in the meantime, just want to thank everybody for listening today. Thanks for joining me, at least for part of your lunch hour, and hopefully you learned something. I mean, if you did, we have a QR code on the next page. Feel free, go on there, let us know if you learned anything. That's to our Google review page. So if you have a chance, I'd appreciate that. It definitely helps me in my time here at Bay Legal, but also it's a good way for me to better target my presentations and let people really get some more information about their specific situation and help them a bit. So feel free, pull out your phone, scan the QR code, leave us a review. Just let me know what you learned. And I can't wait to read everything about what you learned. So everybody have a nice rest of your day. Have a nice evening. And then let's check the chat just one more time here. Feel free, reach out with any questions. We'll be around for a bit and we're here to help. So thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for joining.
I'll see you guys back in the main office.
All right, see you there.
Okay, just Octavio and Nelly in the other room. I think Jack, you won. I think we were floating right around 19 to 22, back to
Yeah.
19. So she bet we would have 20. I bet 25 and
Yeah.
Octavio bet 30.
How many signed up do we have? 50?
50 something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of them was my
55.
friend, actually. She's another attorney that I refer the trust litigation cases to. She joined
Cool.
as well. Yeah. So she's on a visa and stuff too, actually.
Which one is that?
Magna Rel?
Okay, yeah, I wondered if it was her because
Yeah.
she's the only one who showed her
Yeah.
face,
Opened
really.
her camera. Yeah.
Yeah, she's at work. She's like, well, I'm on lunch break anyways, might as well join. So
Yeah. Got things taken care of, Octavio?
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of that needs to
Hi,
be filled
Nelly.
out.
Oh,
Like
Nelly's
wanted
here.
I don't know, but I need to fill this one right now.
Okay,
Nelly's
he
gone.
left.
A lot to fill out? What do you mean?
So I can schedule that one. There's a lot of required fields. I cannot quick book it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Do you
because there
have
are
like
questions.
so when you meet with those guys in the breakout rooms, is there a way, like, do you get facts and stuff kind of what their case is about?
Oh,
Because I know that first
she
no,
didn't want it
didn't
to
get any.
discuss a lot.
Oh, so we don't even know what area of law, huh?
She said, "Well, I do have something, but I cannot turn it away since it's free for the webinar.
Yeah.
It's for somebody else, and that's general information. That's what she
Oh.
said. So how can I fill it?"
Okay, hey, that's
Yeah,
fine. No, just making sure.
he sent me a personal message and he's asking for someone who can speak Spanish. That's why I asked him to go
Oh,
to a breakout room with you.
Oh, she didn't spoke
right.
at all, and she was typing in English.
Oh, okay.
And she said, "I deal with a lot of Hispanics," and I'm like, "Oh, yo hablo español," and she said, "Great." That's it. I mean, she typed, "Great."
Okay.
Oh,
Uh,
weird.
cool, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
I think we have one who booked and qualified for our
Which one was
scope.
that?
That's Lubna. She
Okay.
needs green card, family
The Canadian
sponsorship
one?
to USA
Yeah,
citizen.
Lubna's Spanish one. I mean the Canadian one. I already talked to her a week
Awesome.
ago.
That'll be great. So actually one just came through, free webinar or free consult webinar attendee Karabo Toya for
Oh,
Thursday.
that's the second one. Because we have
Yeah,
one
somebody just did it,
on.
I guess. That's cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, she did on Thursday at
Yeah,
10 a.m.
10 o'clock. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's cool. We're actually seeing it moving forward.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid for that client, that might be a difficult one.
What's the
Right,
case?
Nelly?
Nelly? No, I don't think Nelly will be difficult. I think she needs like
Okay.
information, just general info,
Okay.
but I don't know.
All right. I think we're good.
Hey,
Yeah.
that was
Thanks,
great.
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Yeah, thank you, Siri. Back there.
That was awesome.